Before retiring, the former president, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, gave one of his most memorable speeches in this country. And Kenyans can still relate to that speech.
Nilisema mwaka wa 98 kwamba nitajiuzulu ama nitastaafu kipindi hiki cha miaka mitano ikiisha. Wengine hawakuamini kwa sababu wanaamini power katika kontinenti la Afrika, kwamba kuna mtu anaweza kuwacha power ya urais. Power iko kwa wananchi, na sisi tu ni wadhamini yao. Na ndio nataka kuambia wananchi wetu wanaotafuta democracy, tafadhali muwe na principle. Hiyo kitawasaidia. Nasema haya kwa sababu nitaondoka kwa siasa ya moto mina kwa raia mwema. Lakini wale wanaozingatia kuongoza, musiweke Kenya chini. Musiweke msingi wa siasa zenu kwa chuki. Kama yuko mtu ametukana mimi, namsamehe. Na kama yuko mtu ambaye nimesema chochote ambaye kimeumiza roho yake, unisamehe.
Now, that's the former president, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. And in that speech, the former president is actually asking Kenyans to forgive him. And I know there are several Kenyans who have actually forgiven the former president. But today I want to give you a list of 5 Kenyans who will not forgive the former president, even at death. And number 1 on my list is Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o. Peter Anyang' Nyong'o is the current governor for Kisumu County. And if you are keen enough in this country, you should have realized that almost all governors have sent their messages of condolence to the family of the former president, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, and probably have visited the family. But Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has not sent a message of condolence. He has not even gone to the family. I didn't even see him viewing the body of the former president. And I know you are wondering, why is that? For those who might not be in a position to know what's happening, the KANU government wanted to assassinate Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. By that time, I think he was still a student, but very radical. And there was a brother of his who was working in Mombasa, and they were look-alike. So instead of going for Anyang' Nyong'o, they confused him to be the professor. And this guy was crossing the ferry, and they timed him while on a ferry. And they threw him in the Indian Ocean. Let me read for you what Professor Anyang' Nyong'o told the Independent newspaper in the UK sometimes 2 years ago. He said, even now, no information has come to light. I know he was on a ferry in Mombasa, and witnesses who I managed to talk to told me clearly that it was not an accident, and he had been attacked and pushed off the ferry. But the witnesses were too terrified to testify to the police. I spoke to members of the Kenya Special Branch, and someone informed me that they knew what happened. They were not willing to help in any way whatsoever because of that. So Peter believes his brother was targeted because of his own student activism, which opposed the Moi regime. After that incident, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o was forced to go into exile in Mexico. That's where Lupita Nyong'o was born. And that's why sometimes Lupita Nyong'o introduces herself as a Mexican, because in fact she is, because she was born there. And I remember when the mother to Professor Anyang' Nyong'o died, sometimes, was it last year? And I went to that funeral at night, and there was someone who was taking us, because we were in the family, we were at home, and then we were with some friends. So one of the family members took us to the graveyard in that compound. And we were shocked, because he narrated to us, they have this kind of graveyard where they bury the members, the family members. And he was showing us the graveyard of that Charles who was killed in Indian Ocean. And he was telling us that in that family, that death, they have never overcome it up to today. And they had to be forced to bury banana leaf, I think after Kibaki came into power. Because that's the tradition. If a body cannot be found, then you normally bury a banana leaf. I think that culture is practiced in Luo and Loya. So that's what they did there. And Professor has never forgiven the Moi government for that. Maybe he will attend the burial, but I know he will not forgive Moi for that. Number 2 is Kogi Wamwere. Koigi's case is known in this country. Moi government detained this guy for 9 years. Even Kenyatta government detained this guy. But Koigi has never forgiven Moi, and he will not. And he has been saying that even as late as yesterday. Because remember, Koigi Wamwere had a problem with the government. And the government of Moi made Koigi suffer. His brother, Charles Kure Wamwere, had to be also detained. His brother-in-law also had to be detained for his own sins. So those guys suffered at the hands of Moi. And even his friend, who was a former ex-captain, called Ngige or Ngege, was also detained. And he had to seek refuge. Was it in Norway? And Koigi Wamwere lost a lot. And when he was being jailed in Nakuru, he remained silent. And he was saying that even Charles Njojo insisted that the legs of Koigi Wamwere were on the wrong side. So he won't forgive those people. Number 3 is the Tito or Tetas Andungusi family. That family was ruined by Moi government. And they will not forgive the Moi government. Remember, losing a son who just studied hard to go to the university, and those times going to the university was not a small matter, it was a big deal. The guy is tortured in prison to death. Then sadly, this guy you are not informed as a parent until 1 month later. And this family was actually, even the neighbors feared associating with them, because associating with them would attract the special branch. So when Andungusi died, they could not even get a vehicle to transport his body, because most people feared. So there was an Indian friend of Andungusi who had to help them. And for those who follow the history of this country, you know, my father was a librarian at the University of Nairobi. So he used to have those materials, and I used to read them when I was young. And he used to tell me a lot of these stories because he's well knowledgeable. He knows all these stories. So Andongosi, I think, was the founding chairman of SONO. That must have been 1980 or 81. Because University of Nairobi was closed around 1989. It was closed around 1989. Students' Union banned that time. And then I think around 1980 or 81, I think. Yeah, I think there was a general election in 1979 where the likes of Anyona and the rest were being blocked from running, and the students rioted, and the university was closed around in 1989. Then in 1981, the university was reopened, and the students were allowed to engage again in student union. And that's how Andogosi was elected. And he was elected because the students, during those times, students were very radical. But the senior students were tired because the university was being closed every time. They were being suspended. There were demonstrations. So the senior students were tired. So they wanted someone who is a bit diplomatic, a bit Christianish, even. And they settled on Adogosi because Adogosi was a bit diplomatic. And it was those born-again Christians. But then the moment Andongosi was elected, as usual, they went to State House to meet Moi. And that's what caused all these problems. Because after meeting Moi, then the students at the university started thinking, okay, this guy is a betrayer. So daily they started demonstrating, organizing rallies within the universities. Then Andongosi, I think, because of that, he didn't want to betray the students. He became a radical and started also organizing radical rallies at the university during those times. And that's how he became a victim in 1982. After that failed coup attempt. And he was arrested and jailed for 10 years. The rest are part of history of this country. So I don't think that family will forgive Moi for that. The other guy I know will not forgive Moi is Wafula Buke. Wafula Buke is the immediate director of strategy at the Orange Democratic Movement. And Wafula Buke is a personal friend of mine. I'm just trying to get a post he made the other day. Wafula Buke is a radical, a very close friend of mine. So there's a post he made the other day, don't be reckless while mourning Moi. Funeral influence history. So if you read that post by Wafula Buke, it already has close to 800 shares on Facebook. Almost 500 comments. So that post will tell you who Wafula Buke is. Wafula Buke also suffered. He's the shortest serving SONU chair. He served only for nine days. He was arrested, I think for some 40-something days. He went to Uganda, trained as a gorilla, in the hope that he would succeed in overthrowing Moi. It didn't work. So Wafula Buke is currently in Bungoma, but he didn't complete his university. So those who are close with Wafula Buke will always tell you that anytime you are with Wafula Buke, he always does his eyes like this, the way Raila does, because of the impact or because of the effect of that detention he suffered. And he didn't manage to complete his university. So we will not forgive Moi. That one I can assure you, because it's a guy I know, I talk to. Wafula Buke will never forgive Moi. And lastly, number 5 is a guy called Tirop Kirui, who was also a student, who was at the law school. So this is a guy who would have been productive in this country. Tirop was arrested. The family were being harassed just like the Tito and Ndungusi and Wafula Buke's family. They were being harassed every single day. The reason these guys were calling for freedom of the country. Tirop is currently a human rights activist in this country. He didn't even manage to complete his education. Because during those times when you were suspended, you either had the option of going to another country, the way the likes of Rengo did. But when we took over, he locked out all those. He blocked all those. So you could not even go to those other countries. So the family and the life of Tirop just crumbled down like that. A guy who had a future today would probably be in the league of James Orengo. Today would be probably in the league of those senior lawyers, the senior counsels in this country. Just because they felt that the student deserved better at the university, Kenyans needed freedom of speech. Things which people are agitating for now. And I've listened to him speaking severally. He's not going to forgive the former president. So from where I am, those 5 individuals will be very hard for them to forgive the former president. I don't know what you think. Probably you have some other thoughts, or you have some other individuals who you think will not forgive Moi. I know the likes of Reverend Njoya. For him, he claims he doesn't have any problem with Moi. There are several others. Raila Odinga has already forgiven Moi. I mean, Raila doesn't carry grudges. He has forgiven Moi. There are several others. But if you have someone you think cannot forgive Moi, I want to read that person on this page. Thank you guys, and may you have a good day.